struggle who come from this stable. We count amongst them Festus Mutudi, Ignatius Mtebule. Among those who are still with us, we count Beni Munama, Pingi Fukela, Oba Malema, Petu Seba, Pizimolot, and others. Directing the activities of UNIDRASA was an underground organization operating under the name the JCOL that I was privileged to command. The JCOL itself was formed by comrades like Strike Tukwana of Azapu, who left the country in the mid-1970s. The group that replaced the founders comprised of Mwakura Matlodi, Ignatius Mtebule, Pingi Fukela, Tau Magunyani, Upamulema, Patrick Usiba, with Mrs. Khware, the wife of the then rector and principal, as our political mentor and supplier of petrol. At the time, she, Mrs. Khware, was the president of the Black People's Convention. Our job was to conscientize, organize, lead strikes, ban buildings. In December 1977, I formally joined MK and the NC in Botswana. From then onwards, the JCOL became the underground cell of the NC at TEF, or the University of the North. UNIDRASA became a filter through which we recruited the students into political and military underground. The TEFLOP cell reported directly to Botswana. However, we had contact with Swaziland through Ignatius Mtebule and contact with Lesotho through Thabo Magunyane. Late in 1978, Ephraim Mughali visited TEFLOP on a mission to establish a new student organization at a lower level. Not only did we support him financially, but we went on to recruit him into the NC. It was at this time that we received instructions to link up with Billy Masesha, Jackie Silivia, Jabungwenya, Alex, and Kosimbata in Johannesburg. Through these cells, the NC directed the formation of COSAS, and ASASO later renamed SASCO as the NC aligned student organizations. That led the struggle to popularize the Freedom Charter throughout the 1980s. COSAS and ASASO were formed in 1979, a few months apart. Tito was an active and enthusiastic participation in the activities of both these organizations. I guess some water. Someone is drying my throat. I left work exile in Lesotho in 1980, and a few months later, Tito Mboweni, Sheikh Mkhonto, Puletsatsi, and Desmond Khadebe followed me to Lesotho. There he joined political classes. I was conducting while we were in Maseru. Elected to the SRC. He, as the Secretary for Communication, I as the President. In 1984, during one of my training visits to Angola, my training was cut short, and I was dispatched to Lusaka, Zambia. When I arrived in Lusaka, I found Tito in the same house, same safe house where we stayed together. President Oliver Tambo and his high-level team at the NC headquarters. At the end of the week-long session, we were appointed as co-special presidential envoys to Lesotho. A mission we accomplished with distinction. Comrades and friends, Tito is the godfather of my firstborn child, Stodiani Tlowuramatlodi. Otherwise known as Tapen. I was part of the delegation that negotiated the dowry of Mamukotana and his former wives. In Makhubas Kloof, where we stayed together, he used to look after my garden. Together with Oma, my former wife, we hosted his mother when she came for his graduation to Lesotho. I literally forced him to graduate when he did not want to graduate under the pretext that he did not have a gown. My solution was to hire a gown for him. I taught him how to drive a car in Yeoville, in Johannesburg. In Lesotho, together with Brother Tos, as we called him, Bota, Subikadebe, Vusipikoli, Sheikh Mkonto, who are all here today, we nursed Tito back to health after he suffered a rare sickness. We did this under the supervision of Father Michael Lapsley, in whose house we stayed. Let me skip some parts of my speech and go to the last portions. Let me say this about Tito. It is now evident that I have known Tito for more than 4 decades. He was a highly principled person who stood up for what he believed in. And if that meant him taking a beating, he was prepared to do so. Twice he walked out of my dramas because he disagreed with me. Twice he returned upon persuasion. Given any task, he would accomplish it and later explain how difficult it was to accomplish it instead of the reverse. He was a simple but arrogant fellow, a village boy who fitted very well in the Royal National Democratic Revolution. On Saturday, the 22nd of June, 2024, he sent me a quotation from The Tale of Two Cities, which reads thus, and I quote, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, and we had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct to the other way. In short, the period was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on it being received for good or evil in the superlative degree of comparison only," close quote. This message comrades and friends, was sent to me as part of the difficult conversations we have been having in recent times. I choose not to quote the date when they have no right of reply. That is why, as I go towards my conclusion, I leave his perspective to the few words he sent to me. However, I'm at liberty to tell what I told him. My argument was that we are currently faced with a classical situation of the mating of a black spider. Regarding the fate of the National Democratic Revolution, to the uninitiated, the black spider has a peculiar way of mating. In season, a male spider is consumed by an overwhelming desire to mate. He is aware of the fact that he is certainly going to be eaten. In the heat of the moment, nothing matters but the thought of the sweetness that comes with the act. I truly try to understand his reckless behavior, and I conclude, the poor fellow must be saying to himself, we all must die at some point, so I may as well die a happy man. Fortified by all-consuming desire, he marches on to the waiting predator, female spider. On the other hand, the female chooses his fellow out of others and allow him the privilege to access her. In matters of procreation, it is the female that has the final say as to who to mate with, and not the other way around. In this case, even the female spider must have some affection for the chosen one. The strangest thing is that the act of intimacy is concluded when the female is the beloved. Thank you, program directors. Amanda.
Thanks, the former Premier, which was at some point called Northern Transvaal. Comrade Matlodi, thanks very much. We know that you have lived with Tito from Teflop, University of Lesotho in Lusaka, and so on and so on. Thank you very much. We are now going to ask the children to come and pay the tribute. Silo, Dumi, Bule, please come on stage. And whilst you are coming on stage, I would also like to acknowledge the presence of the current team finance led by our finance minister, who worked very well and for a long time, even before he was Minister of Finance, with Tito Mboweni. Enoch Kotongwana, our finance minister, is here. He's not alone. The Director General of Treasury, Duncan Pieterse, is also here. And two former DGs, they are also here. Lungisa Fuzile, Dondo Mhashana, they are also here. Dondo will remember, Tito will insist that meetings to prepare a budget must take place in Makgobaskloof. And they will make sure that we see the beauty of Makgobaskloof. He marketed Makgobaskloof very well. To me, when we are here, you let me know. And he was very insisting on language, on English. When the local people where he grew up could not pronounce Titus, because his other name is Titus. They called him Titos, and he refused to use the name Titus. And President Mbeki, in his memo, he lied. Continue. Unfortunately, it has to continue in his absence. He says he met former President Mbeki in 1985 at an ANC office in London, 28 Penton Street. This is when he was also debating this matter. He started debating this matter on whether you can have a democratic movement under repressive conditions. And very interestingly, he says in that memo, as I was reading his, he says, former President Mbeki was socializing a lot whilst he was leading mass protests, speaking a lot on our behalf as the oppressed people in international platforms. And I said to him, really? President Mbeki is socializing? I can't imagine it. He says, how? What do you think? He's also a human being. So there's a lot in that memo, and he says that former President Mbeki used to wear bell-bottom trousers. So it's a very great memo, which I do think that it should be published. I will persuade to me and everyone that we really have to publish this memo. It's a very great memo, and I hope because I'm advised that President Mbeki will also be writing his remembrance of Tito Mboweni, and this publication will probably come out, this is what I've been told, former President Mbeki, that it will come out next week. So I'm not putting any pressure on deadline for submissions and all that. I'm just conveying what I've been told, and I'm looking forward to that memo, and I'm sure many South Africans will read this together with some of the speeches that we've got to cut short because of time. Let me hand over now to Silo first. To me, you're a dictator. I'm a program director here. Okay, he's saying Silo must start. Silo, I have no powers. So, Silo, go ahead, please.
For the past few evenings, I have found myself sitting outside in the depths of the night, trying to write a speech which perfectly encapsulates the life of my father. But I could never overcome this simple question. How does one write a finite speech about someone whose impact and legacy is timeless? It's like trying to put the ocean in a bottle. You can tell me, and we are gathered here today to honor and remember my father, a man whose presence filled the lives of so many and whose spirit will continue to live on in all of us. As I sat there during those evenings, I realized that no speech could ever truly capture his essence. His life was full of love, laughter, wisdom, and quiet strength. And trying to sum that up in a few words feels impossible. But today, I'll do my best to share a small piece of the man we all knew and loved. My father was a man who took life's punches with resilience and humor. He was never one to dwell on the past or be held down by regrets. I think that's one of the greatest lessons he has left us. He believed that life was for living, for laughing, and for forgiving. Not just others, but yourself as well. He taught me that if you're going to make mistakes, make them fully and own up to them with dignity, and even with a bit of a smile. But what I'll miss most about my father isn't just his humor or his resilience, it's the small moments. The way he could listen, really listen, when you needed to talk. The way his presence could fill a room with warmth. He made people feel seen and valued, no matter who they were or what they were going through. He had a way of simplifying life's complexities, reminding us that at the end of the day, all we really have is each other. He also had an incredible way of seeing potential in others, even when they did not see it in themselves. He even believed in himself to be the 5-star chef we all know him to be. He was a man who believed in possibilities, in second chances, and in never giving up. Lessons I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. If you were here right now, I'm sure he would nudge me and say something along the lines of, you mustn't make this too long, okay? But how do you keep it short when talking about someone who meant so much? How do you put a period at the end of a sentence that should go on forever? But still, I will try my best to keep this as short as possible. What I admired most about him, though, was his heart. He was kind to everyone, no matter who they were. He made people feel valued, listened to, and cared for. And that's a rare thing in this world. He taught me that at the end of the day, what matters most is not what you have achieved, or what you've accomplished, or what you have, but it's how you make people feel. And my dad made us all feel important. My father lived with a sense of quiet pride and defiance. He faced life's challenges with his head held high, never wavering in his beliefs or his love for those around him. He gave so much of himself to us, his time, his energy, and most importantly, his love. He gave so much love to his family, brothers, myself, my mother. His legacy doesn't end here. It lives on in the stories we'll tell, in the laughter he brought us, and in the lessons he passed down. Like one of my father's favorite songs, Kevin Barry, his life will continue to resonate through all of us. As the lyrics say, Kevin Barry gave his life, his young life, for the cause of liberty. So too did my father give his life for what mattered most, his family, his values, and his love. So while today may feel like an ending, it's not really. His spirit is too big, too full of life, to ever truly be gone. He'll live on in every memory, every smile he left behind, and in every one of us who had the privilege of knowing him. So as I come to the end of this tribute, always loved, a sky full of stars. And now when I look up, I know there's one shining a little brighter, a little closer to me. Among all those stars, I've got my own lucky star, if you will, guiding me as Dad always did, quietly, but ever present. And if you'll indulge me, I can't help but connect it to something that brings a smile to my face. You all know how much Dad loved his pilchards, the ones in that unmistakable red tin. Whether it was for a quick snack or for a full-on course dish, there was no questioning his devotion. So, in a way, I like to imagine that my lucky star isn't just any star. It's up there shining red and bright like a tin of pilchards against the night sky. Steady, reliable, and always there when you need it. So now, whenever I gaze into the night, I won't just see stars. I'll see a little part of Dad, watching over us, still offering guidance, and maybe even chuckling at the thought of being compared to a tin of pilchards. Dad, you've always been my guiding star, and I'll look for you in the night sky, my lucky star. Thank you for everything, for the lessons, the laughs, and the love. You'll always be a part of me, and I'll carry your spirit with me in every day. Keep on giving those life lessons up there, and we'll keep listening down here until we meet again. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. So Can we have the music item?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This is the last item that we're going to have. And this is a special song for all my parents that are sitting here, the president, all the ministers, and the country as a whole and the continent of Africa. It's the song that I released 1st of January to celebrate me as an African child, and it's called Freedom. I wish I was wearing boots. Forgive me, I'll be doing it in heels. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Amandla! Long live the legacy of Tito Mboweni, long live! Long live the legacy of Tito Titus Mboweni, long live! Amandla! Amandla! Ripilele Tito, ripilele! Hianyeli Tito, hianyeli! Richilele Tito, richilele! Amandla! Tito, as you can see, or written in his obituary, he was a reader not only of the contemporary literature, but he was interested in reading classics. Adam Smith, Ricardo, and Karl Marx. And one of the theses that he liked in Marx was human beings make history out of conditions that are not their own making. And as they quote here, one of his most likable, favorite quotes was that even under those conditions, human beings must change those conditions. President Ramaphosa, you've led with Tito Mboweni, not only in his capacity as finance minister. One episode which is very clear in your leadership together with Tito Mboweni and your generation was during the negotiations, which laid a good foundation, constitutional foundation for what Tito Mboweni, as a labor minister, had to do, because he premised the labor reforms, the labor laws that protected workers on the foundation of the Constitution, which our current president, Ramaphosa, led in the negotiations, of course, taking the mandate from the movement as a whole. President Ramaphosa and fellow mourners, if there's any precedent, post-1994 president, one of the presidents, the post-1994, who has led South Africa under difficult conditions, is President Ramaphosa. His Excellency has led under the conditions of COVID-19, 2021 July unrest, leading the renewal of his party has not been an easy task. Leading under the conditions of Ukraine-Russia conflict, us under these difficult conditions. To us as program director, as we are going to sit down, we want to say, Tito, the Duke of Makgowaskloof, you left us with big shoes, which the current generation may find them not very stylish, but these shoes that you've left for this generation are too big to fill, and will continue to learn from you. May I, at this juncture, at this moment, ask His Excellency President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, and as I do so, may I ask you to rise as we welcome President Cyril Ramaphosa on stage. Ramaphosa, rurata kaofela.
Amandla. Amandla. Long live the spirit of Tito Mboweni, long live. Long live the Mboweni family, his 3 sons, his other relatives, as well as a young Mboweni member who I just gained as a friend. As I came in, a young, good-looking young man of 8 years old decided that he would like to sit next to me. And his name is Fifi Mboweni. Tito Mboweni is one of his grandsons. And he also asked whether, in my eulogy, whether I would mention his name. Fifi, I've now fulfilled my promise to you by mentioning your name, so everybody knows that you exist. Former President Thabo Mbeki, former Deputy President David Mabuza, Speaker of our National Assembly, Togo Tidiza, Premier of our province in Limpopo, Popira Matuba, and the Premier of Mpumalanga, Mandla Ndlovu, Judge President Patudi, Judge President of Judiciary in Limpopo, Governor of the Reserve Bank, Lesija Kganyago, Commissioner of South African Reserve Services, Edward Kieswetter, ministers and deputy ministers, former ministers and former deputy governor of the Reserve Bank, the leadership of the African National Congress, Nomvula Mokonyane, the ANC Provincial Secretary of Limpopo, Vamsanda Bomadaje, religious leaders who are here present, traditional leaders and leaders of various political parties and unions. Julius Malema is also here. I single him out. And bulabula here na hiku. Iwabumune la ya parliament. Uza bulabula swakahlenyana imina nkarukwa. Nkarwotala Muisa loyu utolovele kuruketela vanhu na mina mara nkarhi loyi hayi u vulavule kahle swinene a ni khensa ku ri no president a ku khensa ku ri u tlo fa Comrade Tito Mboweni, who are here present, and the democratic movement, members of the business community, comrades and friends. We are all gathered here to bid farewell to one of the most illustrious sons of our motherland, South Africa. Our hearts are heavy because of this great loss that we have all suffered. But we are also here to celebrate a life well led, a life that is replete with many lessons that we can learn a lot from. On behalf of the government of the Republic of South Africa and the people of our country, I convey my deepest sympathies and condolences to the family of Tito Titus Mboweni on the loss of their father, their brother, and their uncle, and their grandfather. I convey my sympathies to the leadership and the membership of the African National Congress, a movement that Tito served with integrity in exile during the journey to democracy and beyond. We have lost a respected leader, a friend, a comrade, a teacher, a mentor, and a compatriot. He was known by many names to many different people. Some knew him as Comrade Tito, Uncle Tito, and also more respectably as the Duke of Makhubasklu. He was larger than life because he led such a big life and touched the lives of so many people. Tito Mboweni fraternized with heads of states and government, such as presidents and prime minister. He was on first-name terms with central bankers from all over the world. He was respected by leading economists, titans of business, labor leaders, and ordinary people in our country. Yet, despite his stature and despite his profile, he never lost the common touch. He had a gift to connect with people. He understood people, and he had a way to make people feel special and make them have a sense that they mattered. Governor H could relate to people from all walks of life. He was an empathetic man. He valued character over pedigree, and he was not a cynical person. He looked for the good in each person and usually found it. But at the same time, he was a person who did not suffer fools lightly or easily. Tito taught us that public service is noble and necessary, that it was important to give back to the community and the country in which one lived. He recognized that serving others enriched the servant's soul. To me, he was the shining star that shined brightest in a maze of a dark period in the life of our country, a dark period we called state capture. He had already left public service when I knocked on his door asking him to return to public service as a Minister of Finance. I just said to him, Comrade Tito, your country needs you to do another tour of service. He agonized about giving up the material value he was building for himself and his family, but after a while, he came through for the people of South Africa and agreed to serve as Minister of Finance. That showed me that we were dealing here with a true patriot. Memory and truth are great virtues. The memories that people have shared of Comrade Tito over the last few days tell us much about his personality and the relationships that some of the finest tributes have come from our nation's journalists. We hear of a senior minister's budget speeches to illustrate his approach to fiscal discipline as he was delivering his budget. Through the Alu Forex plant, he sought to illustrate that, like our country, this plant survives and thrives when times are tough. We continue to admire how he always sought to demystify matters of the economy for our citizens. He insisted that government must communicate with the people and on how the economy decisions that we take impact their lives. We will remember his aversion to a fleshy lifestyle. Tito Mboweni wasn't just incorruptible. He wasn't just an avowed enemy of corruption throughout his life in public office. In time, we will look back at those social media posts of Tito defending his infamous brown shoes that had seen better days before. I remember being photographed with him at my house as he was wearing those brown shoes. I was also wearing almost similar brown shoes. When the wave of criticism descended on his shoes, I immediately packed my shoes away, so that intended in all this, that when you hold public office, When you are entrusted with leadership, you must be of the people, not standing above them, not looking down on them. For Tito, when you hold public office, perceptions matter. Tito's enduring self-deprecation, availability, and humility belied an illustrious career. His remarkable life spans the history of our democratic journey. He was an activist in the struggle against apartheid. He played a formative role in the development of the ANC's economic policy as the ANC prepared to govern in 1994. As the first Minister of Labour, appointed by the father of our democracy, Nelson Mandela, he oversaw the construction of a new labor regime in our country that would reflect the values of our democratic constitution. During his tenure, groundbreaking labor laws were passed. He introduced legislation, as we had, on collective bargaining, the basic conditions of employment, labor relations, health and safety, and employment equity that have served our country well over nearly 3 decades. These laws fundamentally transformed the labor relations landscape in our country and almost completely relegated apartheid labor laws to the dustbin of history. These laws restored dignity to workers of this country that had been denied them for centuries. He then became the first governor, a black governor of the South African Reserve Bank. He oversaw the modernization of our central bank. He introduced inflation targeting and convened the bank's first monetary policy committee meetings and a televised monetary policy statement presentation, which Governor Leseja Kganyago continues with to this day. Later on, as Minister of Finance, he undertook one of the most difficult of roles. It requires someone of mettle, of real courage. It requires an ability to take difficult decisions and to withstand extreme pressures. In a country such as ours, it also requires someone with a keen understanding of the imperatives of development, social transformation, and the ability to redress the damage that was caused by the past. All of which must at the same time be matched by pragmatism. He often had to tell his cabinet colleagues that there was no money for their ambitious plans. As the national breadwinner, it was up to Tito to put things plainly. As a country, we are better off for Tito Mboweni's steadfastness and resilience as Minister of Finance. He championed economic transformation just as he championed fiscal discipline and evidence-based policy making. Through his leadership, the National Treasury steered our economic difficult path through an extremely difficult period. He became finance minister when the country was emerging from the era of state capture, and as the country had to confront a devastating global pandemic. With him at the helm, the National Treasury set itself on a collaborative course with the rest of government to restore policy and regulatory certainty. This would culminate in the establishment of Operation Vulindlela, a joint initiative of the Presidency and National Treasury to speed up the structural reform process that our country so needed, particularly following the years of state capture. Since it was established, the reforms driven through Operation Vulindlela have made considerable headway towards resolving many challenges in our economy. What many will remember, but perhaps others do not know, is that Tito was instrumental in developing the strategy underpinning the reforms we needed to embark upon in our network industries. His initiatives and insights continue to have a very real and material impact on our economy, as well as the lives of ordinary South Africans. It is gratifying that Tito got to see the impact of the hard work that he put in during his lifetime. But I would argue that he left us a bit too early before the reforms that we have embarked upon gain full traction and lead to a growth in our economy, inclusive growth, that should create more jobs, reduce poverty, and eliminate inequality. He got to see how the lives and conditions of workers were improved. He was able to see how safeguarding the independence and the mandate of the South African Reserve Bank works. And he was also able to see how reinforcing good and prudent transformational fiscal policy can be of benefit to our country. On initiating far-reaching structural reforms, the Bureau of Economic Research, which Tito often collaborated with in Stellenbosch University, has said it is difficult to think of any other economic policymaker who has left such an enduring legacy. Tito Mboweni was particularly popular with the younger generation, and we had two of them speaking here on this platform. Who but Uncle Tito could have a chart-topping rap song titled with his name? Who but the Duke of Makhuba could share tips with 1.5 million followers on the best curry powder to cook a chicken with or fish with and impart economic education at the same time? Botala abahleketa kuri Tito Mboweni loko akomba vanhu kuri Lucky Star ingaswekwa kanjani, abahleketa kuri wa penga. Mara a dyondza vanhu vo tala kuri economy ifamba njani. Our younger generation many of his social media followers have a delightful phrase, understanding the assignment. Loosely deciphered, it means knowing what must be done and doing it well. Comrade Tito and I shared a deep passion, which many people may not know about, for trout fly fishing, and would spend a considerable amount of time talking about the skill of casting a line on the water to catch a ground trout and compare that to prudent macroeconomic policy management. I'm glad to hear from his sons that he has also taught them how to fly fish. But I kept fearing that on budget day, he would bring a dead trout fish to the National Assembly and talk about it. I'm glad that he never did. To the Mboweni family, you are all having to deal with the raw heartache from his death. But we want you to know that we are all feeling the pain together with you. Tito's departure has left a void in our hearts. We know that your grief of loss is so overwhelming, but I cannot refrain from offering you the consolation that our nation gives when it expresses gratitude in the manner that many of us have expressed our gratitude to what Tito meant to the people of South Africa as he served them diligently. And I do hope that the recognition of the people of South Africa who knew him may assuage the anguish of your bereavement and leave you the memory of the appreciation many who knew him have spoken about, and the solemn pride that must be yours as a family that gave birth and nurtured such an outstanding son of our country. Comrade Tito, you understood the assignment. As we bid farewell, my dear brother, my comrade, my fellow fly fishermen, your legacy as a successful transformation person, from a freedom fighter to a businessman, to a central banker and to a politician, you were a true servant leader. You were deeply admired, and you were dearly loved by the people of this country. You did deliver on what was required of you. You acquitted yourself with dignity and with honor in the ANC, in government and beyond. You depart this world with that dignity, that honor, and that reputation intact. You did not disgrace or betray your movement or the people of this country. You were a credit and an asset to both your movement and your country. You leave at a time when what you started in the form of reforms are gaining traction and are set to unity. A government of national unity that has brought together, in collaboration, 10 political parties that seek to work together to attain the key priorities that you yourself supported. You leave at a time when we will be holding a national dialogue which will bring our people together through their various formations, where they will come together and discuss where our country and our nation should go to. You leave at a time when there is so much promise for the future of our country. And we can say, you, in more ways than one, worked for this moment. You worked and you made sacrifices so that we should get to where we are. You also leave at a time when your movement is being renewed, when we are dealing with the challenges that have dogged our movement for the longest time. What you have done is the most we can hope for the leaders that will follow in your footsteps. And this Tito Mboweni did do what this nation, what this country asked of him, and he did not disappoint. So we say, Comrade Tito Mboweni, farewell. Ufamba kahle mkhonto. Itahle ihlangana siku rin'wana. Rest in eternal peace. Nakenza.
To lead us to the cemetery. Over to you.
Sidlule zintweni thina siya njalo Thank you to the #1 citizen of the country, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa and his entourage, management of the police led by our National Commissioner General Masimula, Mboweni family, the relatives of this family and friends, members of the clergy present, led by His Grace. Okay, thank you. Members of the clergy led by His Grace Bishop Makhuba, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, compatriots, comrades, fellow South Africans, all protocols is respectfully observed. Be greeted this afternoon in the wonderful name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He knows it all. To me and his brothers, I just want to say that he knows it all. Incidents of this nature, situation of this nature, and be able to stand, even you have all the questions that you might have about the situation. He knows it all. Having the understanding of that nature is the one that is making David in the Psalm, chapter number 23, verse 6. Even though, I think number 4, even though I walk in the valley of shadow of death, I will fear nothing, for I know that he is with me. It is that understanding that says he knows it all. It might be hard on my life, but he knows it all. It might be uncomfortable to be where I am, but he knows it all. It might not be what I want to see, but he knows it all. Knowing that made Paul to write this epistle, the first one, to the Thessalonians, chapter 4, verse 13 and 14, and he says, the light here is too much. Our brothers and sisters, we want you to know the truth about those who have died, so that you will not be sad, as are those who have no hope. We believe that Jesus died and rose again, and so we believe that God will take back with Jesus those who have died believing in him. We want you to know the truth about those who have departed. He knows it all. That is the message that I wanted to say, that he knows it all. So don't be dismayed. Don't be discouraged. Don't be afraid. He knows it all. Come, let us pray. That you journey with us, continuing to the cemetery, as you continue to comfort the family and all the loved ones, and all the colleagues, and all the friends. We thank you, Father. Take your glory, my God, as you do what you've promised in your word, not leaving nor forsaking us, even in times such as this. Uvele njengoNkulunkulu phakathi kwethu, egameni lika Jesu ucotshweyo kuze kube phakade. Amen. We'll now call upon Captain Galawe to come and give us directives in terms of how we're going to move out of this place as we going to the cemetery.
Let me acknowledge the program directors, President of the Republic, former President, former Deputy President, ministers and former ministers present, Deputy Ministers and former ministers, former Deputy Ministers. Okay. Mboweni family, community of Nkuankua, Zanin, Limpopo, South Africa, Africa as well as the world. I am Captain Galawe, the marshalling officer for this funeral. Mine is going to be short. I'm going to explain the roads. We get into the road, we turn right. Immediately on the stop sign, we turn left, and then we'll dismiss. Now the formation of the procession is going to be that one of the police, that is the leading detachment, followed by the band, the Murutis, the bearer parties, the presidency, commissioner of the police, the family, and all other VIPs, as the cast has already been lined up by Colonel Mapaya. What is important that we need to remember is that please do not overtake the procession. As soon as we stopped and dismissed, allow us to travel fast in a lawful speed so that we can reach the space of the grave site before you reach there, so that we prepare ourselves to do the rituals of the police as soon as you arrive, because we will be leading you again from the point where we will be to the grave itself. Thank you very much. Pallbearers and bearers, form up.
Just some few announcements. Lunch will be served at Bankuna High. So ikombela ku lok procession ifamba labangwani inkwenu ya a lunch at Bankuna High. Kutabanati memorial services that will be arranged post the burial of Comrade Tito. Details will be announced. We also want to acknowledge the academia, a number of professors that are amongst our midst. Professor Bula from UNISA, Professor Mbati, and many other professors and academia in our midst. Thank you. While the procession is getting ready, I want to also announce that only the family is going to the grave site.
Sarah party, march left. Slow march. Check. 2, 3, hey. Left. 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 2, 3, hey. 2, 3, hey. Left. 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 2.
Early till now. Oh, that is a tough one.
It's like old bottom.
How you doing, Bob? Welcome.
Yeah, we did.
The last announcement is those who are in these two tents, your lunch is going to be served at the Mboweni TVET. Thank you very much.
Dennis.